So, what is purpose and why is it important? In a few seconds, I'm going to talk about just that. Stay tuned. Hello everybody, Janae here, also known as the Well-Rounded Black Girl. I am so excited to be filming this video. I know I'm like a week and some late. Bear with me. I know consistency is important and I am getting there, I promise. I have all the time today to film, so I'm going to film a few videos. So I have some on deck so that this isn't a problem again. So anyway, as you can tell, today's video is about purpose. What's your purpose? How do you find it? Why is it important? Why should you even want to know what your purpose is? So I'm going to get into that. First, I just want to say that this is not going to be like a philosophical discussion on purpose. I would love to do that. I could talk about that all day, but it's kind of outside of the scope of this video and I don't want it to be super long. So I'm going to save that for another time. This is going to be a little bit more of a practical discussion about purpose, what it is, why it's important, how you can find it, all of that good stuff. So I'll probably reference this again at the end of the video, but I definitely want to direct your attention to the discussion box, or what is it, the information box, description box down below, where I have linked a lot of resources that I've used to personally help me to kind of frame this discussion and how it's going to go. And there's a lot of information. I couldn't put it all in the video, but there's just so much, and I definitely want to shout that out and welcome you to take advantage of any of the resources that I've posted below. So the reason I mention that is because I'm about to tell you the working definition of purpose that I'm going to be working with through the duration of this video. And a lot of it is kind of smashed together from a lot of those different resources, as well as some of my own thoughts on the topic. But I just wanted to make that clear and say that I'm not plagiarizing. I promise all the information is down there. So for the purposes of this video and this discussion, I'm going to say that purpose is something that involves the central aim of your life. It's the reason why you get up in the morning. It's something that entangles all of our passions and values and interests and strengths and abilities all into one kind of concept that allows us to understand how we are to move in the world and what our purpose is here. Purpose can guide your life decisions. It can influence your behavior. It can shape your goals, and it can give you a sense of direction for how you want to move. If you ever felt like you're lost and you just don't know what you want to do next, whether that's in your career or some passion that you have, a hobby, anything like that, when you listen to and understand your sense of purpose and what you are here for, again, not in a philosophical sense, but just what really drives you, what makes you want to get up and go, when you find that, you can seek out opportunities and activities that really align with that and drive that forward and allow you to contribute to the world in a way that feels best and suited for you. And purpose isn't static necessarily. It can be a dynamic thing. You can have a really big life experience that completely expands your horizons or gives you a new set of responsibilities, and you may feel now that that thing also encompasses or is a part of your life purpose. And that's okay. I'm here to tell you whatever you feel like your purpose is, as long as it's not hurting anybody else, I think that's okay. And I'll get into a few ways later as to how you can actually find that if you don't know what it is. So why is purpose important? Why is this life-altering, aim-driving, this whole concept, why is this important? Well, one, because it can be life-altering and it can drive your aims and it can really help you to live with what you feel like is a good meaning, can give you meaning to your life. And so there are a lot of other reasons why purpose is very important to our lives. There's actually research that links a sense of purpose to improved health outcomes, such as fewer strokes and heart attacks, better sleep, which is very important, and even a lower risk of dementia. On a career tip, there are also studies that show that people who feel like their work has meaning or has purpose actually make more money in the long run. There's also one study that really implies that a sense of purpose can cultivate resilience in our lives and our emotions and our well-being. There's one study that found that if we can find meaning from our experiences, that there's a greater tendency that we'll be able to kind of bounce back from the negative events that happen to us in our lives. And everybody has those events, and you know, you always hear that like a positive outcome or a positive outlook, is really important to facing life's issues, and I completely agree with that. But if you're living in a sense of purpose and you feel like all of your actions are kind of aligned with this sense of purpose, even something negative, it might feel like a setback, but it might be a chance for you to reevaluate. It might be just the shock you need to say, hey, you're steering off the path a little bit here. And even if it's just something negative, if it's, I don't even want to put anything out there in the atmosphere, but you know, all the types of things that can happen to us in our lives, having a positive outlook and feeling like you have a sense of purpose can actually help us, like I said, bounce back a little bit easier than we may have if we weren't living with that sense of purpose. Now, I want to be clear and say that last tip or last little statistic that I gave, it talks about meaning and talks about finding meaning in our lives. And I do want to make the distinction that meaning and purpose are a little bit different. They're very, very connected. There are lots of psychologists out there who feel like purpose is kind of a subset of meaning. Like if you want your life to have meaning, and we as human beings typically do want our lives to have some kind of meaning, that one facet of that is living with purpose and understanding your purpose. And so I do want to say that I'm not conflating meaning and purpose, but because they are so linked, I think that it's kind of, it's a foregone conclusion that improving your sense of meaning can also include improving or finding your purpose. One way to think about it is that purpose implies action. If you're kind of just sitting and kind of ruminating on your role in life and what that all means, then obviously you're looking for meaning. Purpose is kind of the direction that you take in your life to give your life meaning. So how can you find this nebulous thing called purpose? I'm going to be honest and say it's different for everybody, and I don't know that any one person has come up with like a fail-safe way to find your purpose, but a lot of it comes from paying attention to yourself and paying attention to the people around you and the world around you. The first thing I would say is to make purpose personal to you. What does it mean to you? Is it something that's going to guide your career? Is it going to guide your altruistic experiences, your relationships, your entire life? Most likely it's that last one, but there are ways that you can find a purpose and follow purpose, find your own purpose, and funnel it through all of those different areas of your life. And which part of it are you most concerned with right now? You have the power to pick and choose. Now, it does kind of involve finding what your purpose is overall, but you can then decide how you want to funnel that and in what level, what the priorities are in terms of living your purpose. Psychologists seem to convene on the idea that while purpose is not inherent to us, the search for purpose is. Meaning, your purpose can be found, it can be created, it can be learned. The one thing that you're good at, you don't have necessarily from birth. And so that's a good thing. That's a good thing for everybody out there who is stressing out about your purpose, trying to find out what it is, trying to do all this deep, meaningful soul searching. Not that you shouldn't do those things. I absolutely think that you should. But it means that you don't have to worry about the fact that you haven't found it yet. You still have time to find it. You can create it. You can learn what your purpose is. That is fantastic news, because it means that we can take a deep breath and understand that although it does take deliberate action from us, we can get there when we get there, and we're never too late. You're never too late to discover your purpose. So if you're a little bit confused about what your purpose might be, one step is to take stock of what you have and who you are and where you currently spend your time. In general, the places where we put the most focus and the most amount of time are the places that really mean a lot to us. And so that can be a big clue as to where you can find your purpose. Now, conversely, if you're feeling a little bit busy, a little bit overwhelmed, kind of stressed out, maybe even a little checked out, time to do a personal inventory. This is an excellent place to do some of that reflection that I talked about in my last video. And if you want tips on that, go and check that one out. But really ask yourself, are there places where I can be more present in my life? Even if it's something as simple as driving home from work. Have you ever been in a car, you're on autopilot, and you drive from home to work or work to home or whatever, and you look up and you're like, I don't even really remember doing that. We can all get on autopilot. It's a way that our brain, it's a mechanism that our brain uses to kind of zone out and reduce stimuli. But it's also important that we recognize where we are, that we kind of take stock of ourselves and are very present in the moments that matter. So maybe you might be on autopilot at work. You might be on autopilot in some of your relationships even. Stop, take a breath, look around and see if there are places in your life where you can be putting more attention, where you can be more present, because those might be the places where your purpose is residing and kind of waiting for you to find it and tease it out. You want to just make sure that before you look externally for your purpose, you look internally and see where that purpose might lie. Now, my next tip is going to seem like it completely contradicts exactly what I just said, and that is to get outside of yourself. So yes, you should make it personal, and yes, you should take a personal inventory of yourself, your life, your experiences, all of that, where you put your time and effort, all of that good stuff. But you shouldn't stop there. Even if you find somewhere in your personal sphere where you feel a real sense of connection, you feel like a really like this aligns with your purpose, I say great. Take stock of that, take note of it, put a pin in it, and then get outside of yourself. And there's so many different ways to do that, and I know it can be very daunting sometimes to think about that. And to think about doing it intentionally and doing it for the purpose of finding your purpose. It feels a little bit selfish, but one thing I do want to make sure to be clear about is it's not selfish to try and seek your purpose. Purpose is about how you can make your life feel meaningful. And in a society where we are human beings with other human beings, that means being meaningful and contributive to the world around us. We don't have a sense of purpose to just foster our own skills, to just get ourselves ahead. When we have a sense of purpose, it kind of emanates from us. And it doesn't have to be, I want to help everybody. That doesn't have to be your purpose. But your purpose allows you to contribute to society and to feel good about that contribution. So purpose does involve other people, and we have to get outside of ourselves a little bit to kind of really cement that and find out what our purpose might be. So one way to kind of get outside yourself and find your sense of purpose is to either read or have lots of conversations with different people. Now, obviously, you can do both. And I know for me, I am an introvert. It's hardcore. And there are social introverts out there. It's definitely a thing. But I'm not necessarily one of them. I'm kind of a homebody. I kind of keep to myself. I have friends, all that good stuff. Blah, blah, blah. I have a life. But I do like to be home a lot. I like to, do things that are kind of solitary. I love to read. It's one of the things that I love to do most in the world. Now, reading allows you to completely immerse yourself into the story of somebody else. You can read books about people who are just like you, and I think it's very important that we have books about people who are like us for representation's sake, so that we all don't feel so alone. But I also think it's important to read stories about people who are not like you, because I also feel like that can help us feel not so alone. I think a lot of the times we don't understand other people, and whether that be another culture, another group, of whoever, if you can say us versus them or us and them, it doesn't have to be versus, but you don't always understand that other group of people. And reading is a really low or no contact way of getting in the head of somebody else and really seeing what their experiences are like and seeing what resonates with you, because as human beings, we all have kind of connective experiences, and I think we don't necessarily think about that in our day-to-day lives. Now, for people who are a little bit more social, reading, you can still do that, obviously. And I would implore my folks who balk at the thought of talking to somebody else just because, to just try it a little bit. I know it gives me anxiety. It really, really does. But I found that some of the best conversations I've had with people are with people that I'm not necessarily connected to, not necessarily going to even see again. I had the best conversation about 2 months ago with an Uber driver, and I took an Uber home from work one day, and we just had this really great conversation. It was, we actually were kind of talking about purpose and how we were going about searching for those things, for what that is in each of us, and how we felt like we had found it, and we were both giving examples to each other. It was just a great like conversation with somebody that I've never met again. Somebody that I've never met again, probably won't ever see again, but it was just a moment of human connectedness that I wouldn't have had if I had gotten into my Uber and immediately gotten on my phone and just, zoned out for the entire ride. So I definitely think that talking to other people, sharing stories, that's why I say read or talk to people. It's not that the two are necessarily the same, but from both of them, you can get a sense of other people's stories, see how those stories connect with you, and see what the differences are. Because somewhere in there may lie it might spark you to say, oh my gosh, I really connect with this person on this thing. I didn't realize so many other people felt this way. Maybe I can find a community to further this purpose, or whatever the case may be. I just feel like exposing yourself to a lot more people, a lot more stories will help you to understand and help you to see areas that you may have been blind to where your purpose might lie, or where you can create a purpose if you feel so compelled to do so. So this next thing might feel a little bit weird. It also involves talking, but it involves talking to your friends. And so I will say, maybe last year, I was working with a life coach, and she had me do an activity where it was called Finding My Essence. And basically I had to interview as many friends as possible and ask them basically what they think about me. It was a little bit more specific and involved than that, but that was basically that was the general idea. And it was so uncomfortable for me. I didn't necessarily want to do it. I didn't know what I was going to hear. It was just very nerve-wracking. But I will say, I talked to probably 15 or 20 people, let's say. And it was overwhelming to hear about myself from people who are not me. You always have a face that you want to put out to the world, but you don't really know what the world sees. And so by having these conversations, not only was it so helpful for like my self-esteem and my feeling of connectedness to the people around me, that they were actually paying attention to me, and seeing me, and reinforcing that level of our relationship, but it also helped me to see patterns. So, my friends, they think that I'm intelligent and dedicated. They think I'm curious and passionate. But the one thing I kept hearing over and over and over and over again was I was helpful. So that resonated with me so strongly, because I had already known, or at least had an inkling, that helping people was a part of my life's purpose. And I had been trying to decide what that purpose was. Helping people came to mind. And I know it's so generic. I know it is. But that was really something that I felt strongly about. It was really interesting to have those conversations and hear from people how I was being helpful, or ways I was being helpful that I hadn't even considered, that I hadn't even thought about. So it was really clear that this purpose I had was like exuding from me in ways that I didn't even realize it was. And once I was able to really like look at it and say, oh wow, these things, all of these things that I do, all of these activities that I'm a part of, these experiences that I've had, the connecting tissue, the connecting fiber is that they all revolve around helping people in some way. That was really affirming to me to keep pushing in that direction and really refine and figure out what my purpose was, a little bit narrower than just helping people. And I will say that I definitely have refined that at this point. Based on those conversations and just other experiences that I've had in my life, I know now, and I feel very strongly, that my life's purpose is just to help other people live the lives that they want to live versus any life that they feel forced to live in any way for any reason. And every time I say that, or think it, or read it, because I've written it down in several places to like keep myself aligned, there's something that lights up in me. It just means something to me. I feel so strongly about that purpose that I can't help but understand that is my purpose. That is what I want to contribute to the world. It's part of why I do what I do. I work in education and like college and career readiness. It's part of why I built this YouTube channel. You know, it exists in so many areas of my life, and I feel like I am living in alignment with my purpose, and that has made all of the difference. Honestly, it's made all of the difference in how I feel about so many different areas of my life, how I want to move forward, you know, what ultimate direction I see my life taking. That is still forming because I'm still like fairly young, but I have a roadmap now. I have kind of bumpers on my bowling alley, you know, my bowling lane, so that I don't veer too far outside of what my purpose is, and I couldn't be happier about that. One more way to kind of get outside yourself, meet people, learn about other groups of people, all of that, is to volunteer, to do some service. And when you do that, make sure that you're going into whatever community, whatever space you're going to where you're going to volunteer. Make sure you do that with an open heart and an open mind. Make sure you're going in not with a savior's complex, but with a real desire to help people around you. Before I made a little bit of a career change about 1.5 years ago, I worked for 7.5 years at a service organization, and I credit it, not completely, but almost wholly, with completely expanding my horizons and for guiding me to understand what my purpose is today. So I say all that to say, don't be isolated, you know, get out there, find out about the world, meet people, help people, do what you can. The world is vast, but you never know what kind of life-changing or life-steering experiences you can have once you kind of get out of yourself a little bit and interact with the world around you. I briefly wanted to talk about if there are any pitfalls around purpose. Is there anything you want to watch out for? And I want to pause here and mention again the resources down below. There is a capstone kind of paper that I found from somebody who was studying at the University of Pennsylvania. They did their capstone on purpose, on finding your purpose, and something they call purpose anxiety. And I really want you all, if you're interested in this at all, it's linked below. It's fairly long, but it's really interesting. She did a study, so there's some research and methodology in there if you're interested in that type of thing. If not, you can totally get it if you skip around it. But the one thing that she was really wanting to do in this paper is to coin the term purpose anxiety. Now, I'm going to quote her directly, and so I definitely want you to be able to find the link. Again, I'm not plagiarizing. But purpose anxiety is described as the negative emotions experienced in direct relation to seeking your purpose. Now, these negative emotions can be felt either while struggling to find your purpose or while struggling to live your purpose. So what I want to say to that is really just to remember to open up to all of the different ways of finding your purpose, but also understand that finding your purpose might take a little bit of time. Relish in the new experiences and observations you're gaining on your journey to finding your purpose. Think of people who have given everything to be world star athletes, or to lead huge social movements, or even small social movements. Or even folks like teachers who are often grossly underpaid and undervalued, but stay true to their mission and their purpose of educating, the minds of the future. It's not always easy to live your purpose, to do the hard things and to make the hard choices that make living your purpose, or that living your purpose requires. But hopefully the feeling that you get from actually being aligned with your purpose outweighs all of that. So that is the video. I hope that something said here resonated with you, that it gave you something to think about, that if you are on a search for purpose, that it helped you find your path in some way. And I definitely hope that you take the time to check out some of those resources below. They are fantastic, and I just really enjoyed myself kind of doing the research around this topic. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. I promise that I'm going to be very consistent. I have time today. I'm filming. So I have a huge October planned, and I'm going to make a separate video about that. But stay tuned. It's very exciting. Give me a like. Catch up with me on social media. I would love to hear from all of you. And I think that is going to be it. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.